They've done it. They've ended the streak. The 8-game losing streak is over. The beam is finally lit. I forgot we even did that. Forgot what the beam even looked like. And the Kings take down the Nuggets. This schedule early in the season, playing OKC 3 times, losing all 3 of them. Playing the Nuggets 2 times before this, losing those 2 games. Playing Minnesota 2 times before this, losing those 2 games. Now we play Minnesota in the next game. Absolutely brutal schedule, but at least the Kings came out with 1 win out of those 9 combined games against the top teams in the West. Maybe they can make it 2 in the next game against Minnesota, but we'll take the 1 win as opposed to going 0 for 9. And this win was fueled by Keegan Murray and Russell Westbrook. Keegan Murray looking healthy after he looked a little rusty in his first game. The Kings losing by 41 in his first game of the season. But at least in that game, he got 32 minutes. He got his shots up. He got his legs under him. And now he comes into this one and immediately from the jump was making such a big impact. Him guarding Jamal Murray is a breath of fresh air compared to everyone else on the team. Like, I forgot what having a real defender on the team looked like. It's just so much different. Even in that first quarter, watching everyone else defend, when Keegan Murray was blocking shots and getting steals and all that, it was great. On the possessions when he wasn't involved, absolutely brutal defensively to start this game. So just having a competent defender. I mean, Keegan Murray looks like the best defender in the world when you've only been watching the Kings this season. He comes in and just looks so far ahead of everybody else on this team defensively. And not only that, he was also great offensively. Then you have Russell Westbrook taking over in the fourth quarter against his former team, the team that did not want him. I'm sure he has great relationships with the players on the other side, but he probably hates that front office, and he probably wanted to absolutely stick it to him, just like he did earlier in the season when he scored his season high of 26 points and had that big game earlier in the season. But this time it probably feels even better coming away with the W. He had a massive fourth quarter. DeMar was huge down the stretch. The Kings just had a very balanced scoring attack. One thing that was also big was Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun not being here for the Denver Nuggets, both of them being out with injuries. And so the Kings actually had the advantage at the wing/forward position, which is probably the first time this entire season that they've had that. And so is it a coincidence that the Kings finally have the advantage in terms of that versatility on the wing, having the best wing defender and someone who physically can get inside, attack, also step out and hit the 3? Is it a coincidence that them finally having the advantage in that area of versatility, that they pull out the win? This is the game that they pull out the win. That should really be the lesson that I think we take away from this game. Is like, when you have that advantage at that position, even if you don't have the advantage at the center position and you're getting absolutely mauled at the center position for the entire game, going up against Jokic and Valanciunas just backing down Eubanks and Reynaud and Achua, they were still able to come out with that win because you have Keegan Murray out there, and especially because Aaron Gordon and Christian Braun were out, especially Aaron Gordon, it meant Keegan Murray could then take that Jamal Murray matchup and take him out of the game at least a little bit. That should be the lesson that we take away from this game. I have a feeling that Vivek may take a different lesson away. Maybe that, like, he should give a max contract to Russell Westbrook, but, we'll take the win where we can get it. I think there were 4 guys that I particularly enjoyed watching in this one. Obviously, Keegan Murray, Russell Westbrook, and then off the bench, Maxime Renaud, even though he didn't play in the second half, and at times he got back down and just scored on, but I enjoyed watching him play. And then Dennis Schroeder with his scoring off the bench, looking very comfortable in that role off of the bench. And him and Russell Westbrook, them swapping spots has just helped both of them. I didn't truly start to believe that the Kings were going to win this game until probably a minute left, or maybe a little over a minute left. The entire time down the stretch, I was thinking that it was a good effort. At halftime, I thought that the Kings played a really good first half, and they were down, I think, 4 points. Then they go down 13 in the second half, and I'm like, it was a good effort. Then they start coming back. I'm like, yeah, showing some fight. In the fourth quarter, they take that lead, great fight. Then Jokic comes back in. They go up 9, and I'm like, okay, well, they're absolutely showing great fight. They're giving themselves a chance, but, it's probably going to be just Jokic and Murray pick and roll down the stretch, scoring every time down. The Kings are going to go isolation. They're going to stop scoring. For a little bit, that's kind of what happened. The Nuggets got it within 4 with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left, scoring every time down. Jokic coming in, hitting every three, getting inside, getting rebounds. That Murray-Jokic pick and roll, picking us apart. Precious Achiuwa out there doing everything he could to try to stop Nikola Jokic, but it just not being enough. And I truly was just like, I'm content with how the Kings have played up to this point, but I think we're going to lose it in the end here. But they didn't. They kept fighting. They got a few stops down the stretch. Russell Westbrook had that rebound that he saved off of Jokic. And then they got the offense going. It was a little bit isolation heavy for my liking and getting into the offense a little bit late. But they got it done. Through DeMar DeRozan, he was finding open teammates like Russell Westbrook in the corner. Zach LaVine open for 3, missing it so bad that it was a shot clock violation. But, that's okay. And that DeMar and one down the stretch to really seal the deal. A very impressive win, forcing Jokic to go for 44 points. That's kind of what I'm taking away. They forced Jokic. Jokic, he looked like he didn't want to have to score that many points. For the first half of this game, I was more scared of Valanciunas than I was of Jokic, because Jokic just didn't seem interested in actually getting into the paint and battling down low. His numbers were still insane. At one point, I was like, man, this has kind of been a bad Jokic game, and he had like 33, 12, and 7 at that point. But he did look a little disinterested. I mean, he was out there just flopping against Drew Eubanks. He is hard to watch when he's just flopping. Like, bro, it's Drew Eubanks. There's no way he's throwing you around like that. You can absolutely back him down if you want to. But Drew Eubanks was just like making things just tough enough on Jokic. Obviously, the Kings extremely undersized when it comes to trying to guard Nikola Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas. There aren't many teams with players that can truly match up with those guys, but the Kings, especially without Sabonis, Drew Eubanks, Maxime Renaud, Precious Achiuwa, all just battling out there. And at times, they would get scored on a few possessions in a row, time after time. But then there were other times where I think they just made it difficult enough. Their physicality was enough to kind of dissuade Jokic or Valanciunas from, well, I don't think Valanciunas ever really got dissuaded, but they dissuaded Jokic from really trying to get all the way deep inside. I think some of the other keys to this game, one was just the Kings relentlessly attacking the paint. 62 points in the paint for the Kings, 54 for the Nuggets. Free throws were also huge for the Kings, 22 for 23. And then the fast break points and the turnover battle in general. The Kings scored 23 fast break points to the Nuggets, 8. That is huge against the Denver Nuggets, who love to get out and run. And not having Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown, that's a big blow for the Nuggets when it comes to those fast break points. But the Kings did a great job of taking care of the ball. And that is absolutely key. You cannot give the ball up against this Nuggets team because they're going to get out and they're going to score. 7 turnovers for the Kings, 13 for the Nuggets, and the Kings were a plus 10 in the points off turnovers battle. 8 steals to 1 in the advantage of the Kings. The defensive effort was just different, especially with Keegan Murray starting, because he didn't start last game, and so from the jump, he was just making a big impact on the defensive side of the ball. Even when other players weren't even really playing well defensively, he was just making that big impact. Guarding Jamal Murray, blocking him on the first possession, then going right at him on the offensive end, going to that step back midi. He drew an illegal screen, chasing Jamal Murray around the perimeter, came up with the loose ball steal. That wasn't really anything he did, but he just happened to be in the right place at the right time and threw it forward to Westbrook for a score. He forced Jamal Murray to turn the ball over just by being physical on the baseline with him. A little bit later, got a steal guarding Nikola Jokic in the post. And one of the things that the Kings did pretty well of, at least in the first half, was going after steals when Jokic was trying to get deep post position. Keegan got one, DeMar got one, Precious Achiuwa got one. They were trying to prevent Jokic from catching the ball deep. They were trying to front him, and the Nuggets passing into him was not good, and so they were able to pick off those passes. So Keegan's defense was great. The rest of the Kings' defense wasn't great, so they were still getting scored on quite a bit, and they still gave up 123 points, and Jokic still scored 44 points. So the Kings had to outscore the Nuggets, and that's clear for any Kings victory. They're going to have to outscore their opponent. The Kings have been one of the worst offensive teams in the entire league. If they want to be good, They have to be a top 10, top 5 offense in the league. With the talent that they have, with the roster construction that they have to just be able to make shots and make plays. To be able to win games, you're just not going to win defensively. The off-ball defense was horrendous. Russell Westbrook was absolutely horrible defensively, especially in the first quarter. Got lost off-ball a million times. But then on the other end, he was kind of making up for it. He was the offense. He was getting downhill, throwing up lobs to Eubanks and Levine, scoring inside. In that first quarter, he had 6 points, 6 assists, and the Kings were just doing a great job, starting with Russell Westbrook, but also other guys as well, of just going straight at the Nuggets in the paint. They don't have a rim protector in there, just go straight at him and try to finish at the rim. That's exactly what they were doing. Maxime Renaud, he came into the game, immediately got inside, got a score on that goaltend from Peyton Watson, I believe it was. DeMar was doing a pretty good job of his playmaking, especially from the mid-post areas throughout the game. It was the Kings dominating on the interior. It was the Nuggets dominating from the three-point line. I think they started 8 for 15 from 3, which is kind of a classic three-point line from a Kings opponent, especially early in games where they aren't awake defending the perimeter. A couple Kings got into foul trouble. Drew Eubanks got into foul trouble. That's not exactly surprising, him having to guard Jokic, but also Nick Clifford got into foul trouble. Nick had 3 fouls, all of them going after rebounds on both ends of the court. He also got away with one later in the game where he got an offensive rebound. Probably should have been a foul. So he needs to be a little more careful going after these rebounds, but he got into foul trouble. Eubanks was in foul trouble. The Kings went with Maxime Renaud for a little bit at the backup center position. Then they also went with Precious Achiuwa. In the second half, it was only Precious Achiuwa as the backup center, but in that first half, we did see quite a bit of Maxime Renaud. I don't know if that was the plan or if they just had to make an adjustment because Drew Eubanks got into that foul trouble. But I did like what Maxime was doing. He was especially holding up against Jokic when he first came into this game. It was more later on when Valanciunas came in that Valanciunas then started really backing him down and scoring on him. But Max made some good plays, especially I just love the way that he gets position inside. This is something he's done all season. He's constantly running the floor, trying to establish deep position, catching the ball. His footwork is good. His finishing touch is good around the rim. So every time he finds himself inside, both in those transition moments, he also moves off ball well and finds himself in good positions inside to catch the ball and quickly finish. So those are the things he was really contributing. Also got a nice steal and found Keegan Murray up floor, and Keegan got fouled. I think Max has just been a joy to watch this season so far. He's just one of those players on the Kings that when he's on the court, I'm watching him intently because I feel like he's going to do something good. In that second quarter, the scoring was a very balanced attack. You had Malik Monk getting into the paint. You had DeMar DeRozan getting into the paint. You had a great Monk transition dunk. Precious Achiuwa was fighting inside for rebounds. Schroeder came in, had 7 really early points, was scoring at all 3 levels. Keegan Murray was battling for offensive boards inside and finishing in traffic. The Kings were forcing turnovers, getting out, and running. The one really tough part of that second quarter was when Valanciunas started to dominate. He had 7 minutes, scored 8 points. I was actually relieved when Jokic came into the game. I was like, yay, Valanciunas' backup is coming into the game here, because Val did start to dominate us. That was when the Nuggets got out to their biggest lead of the first half. It was a 9-point lead with those 8 points from Valanciunas. And then when Jokic came back in, there were 2 straight possessions where I felt like Eubanks was really making Jokic work for things, and he got a steal, was frustrating Jokic, and then Jokic just gave him a little spin and got a wide open dunk. And I was like, okay, yeah, that was bound to happen at some point. But I loved the balanced scoring attack. 9 players from the Kings in the first half had 4 or more points. So everyone getting a couple of buckets here or there. Great balanced attack. Keegan contributing on both ends after looking not great defensively in the first game, not being able to stay in front of his man. This game against Jamal Murray was doing very well. Westbrook attacking, getting into the paint. The off-ball defense was really where the Kings struggled. That's where they were giving up those 3-pointers. A lot of corner 3-pointers. But after the 8 early threes, 8 for 15 from 3, the Nuggets went 6 for their next 22. So they were able to regroup in the second half and be a little bit more alert off-ball. And I think I have to give Doug Christie some credit because The defense looked a lot better in the second half, and it wasn't just because guys were more alert, but it looked like they actually had a plan. It was honestly the first time for the entire season that I felt like the Kings have actually had a plan defensively. I was like, ooh, when Jokic caught the ball in the post there, they actually looked like they knew what they were doing. Okay, the double came or the switch came, and then, okay, this guy's ready to rotate, and they know exactly where they're going. I was like, what am I watching? Actual competent defensive rotations. It was like one possession, but like that one possession, that was a great possession. That was the type of possession that we really haven't seen this season. So, got to give credit to the coaching staff when something like that happens, because it hasn't happened at all this season. The start of the third quarter, though, was not great. The outside shots for the Kings were not going down, probably because it was Russell Westbrook and DeMar DeRozan taking them, and they just weren't generating a ton of great shots. The Nuggets clamped down a little bit on their interior defense. The Kings were not moving the ball the same, not able to get into the paint the same, and so they were kind of forced to these late shot clock 3-point attempts, and they were missing them, not shooting well from three at all. And then that was when Jokic is flopping. It got to me, and it also got to Drew Eubanks, who got a technical because he was just done with Jokic's ridiculous flopping. You are like 300 pounds, bro. You are not getting thrown to the other side of the court by a guy walking into you. It was definitely frustrating. But the Nuggets were able to get out to a double-digit lead. They were able to get up 13 points. So it was kind of a, oh, here we go again type of moment. But then the Kings mounted a comeback, and it was really a lineup of Dennis Schroeder, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Precious Achiuwa. Keegan knocking down 2 threes and a step-back midi. He had a nice little 8-point spree, scoring 8 straight for the Kings. Then DeMar started to get into the action, drawing a foul, driving inside, and kicking out to a Dennis Schroeder 3. Then Dennis Schroeder started to take over. He was knocking down the outside shot. He was driving inside and getting to the free throw line. He was then hitting another 3, hitting a mid-ranger. Keegan then got a block on the defensive end. Like, everyone was really feeling it in that lineup. Then they made a substitution that I really questioned, and it was Zach LaVine coming into the game for Keegan Murray. So I was pretty concerned with a lineup of Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, and Precious Achiuwa. That was where I was like, okay, you could have put Maxime Renaud in here, maybe taken Malik Monk out, or not put Zach LaVine in at that moment. Or maybe take out DeMar there because he had played the whole third quarter at that point. But they were able to survive with that lineup at the end of the third quarter, despite giving up a few open threes, giving up some offensive rebounds to Jokic. I was very concerned with that lineup, but they got through it. The start of the fourth quarter was a little bit of back and forth. The Nuggets striking first. The Kings didn't really get set in transition, and they attacked Malik Monk 2 times in a row, going to the rim, then Jamal Murray from 3. But then the Kings just gave it right back to him. Counter punch. Right back in transition, Malik Monk 3, Neek with a nice nifty layup at the rim, Russell Westbrook with a nice finish at the rim, and then Russell Westbrook just kind of started to take over. He hit a corner 3, and down the stretch, he was constantly getting to the rim with these quick little layups. And it was obviously very important for the Kings to build a sizable lead before Jokic came into the game. And they did just that. Eubanks taking a little bit of a page out of Jokic's book, going for the kind of weak flop attempt and getting the charge call on Valanciunas. I was laughing pretty hard at that one after what Jokic had been doing all game with his flopping, and then Eubanks gets the call with his flop. But then Jokic came back in and immediately hit a 3, and I was like, okay, I think the fun might be over. But it wasn't over. Keegan hit a 3, LaVine hit a tough shot, Kings got a steal, Malik Monk had an and 1, and that put the Kings up 9 with just over 6 minutes to go. And there was a timeout. And that's where the Nuggets were like, okay, we're going to get serious here. With just over 6 minutes to go, that's when they started to go to their bread and butter. They started to go to that Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic pick and roll. And that's what I was terrified of. They started to score every time down. The Kings had a lineup of Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, and Precious Achiuwa. So they went with Precious Achiuwa as opposed to Drew Eubanks. And, fair enough. I think they liked Precious's physicality and fight on the offensive glass and obviously the defensive glass, but he definitely was not defensive rebounding that well against Jokic. Jokic could just reach right over him. But the same would have been true for Drew Eubanks, so it's not like, that's making any difference. But the Kings were pretty much going to have to outscore the Nuggets because they were scoring every time down. Jokic was either getting inside. He started 3 for 3 in that fourth quarter from 3 before finally missing one really late. It was Russell Westbrook controlling the offense for a majority of the fourth quarter, either getting to the rim and finishing or kicking out and finding guys. But the Kings were up 4 with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left, just holding on for dear life as they couldn't get a single stop. They were getting a few scores, but then they really went into isolation mode. They were trying to find DeMar DeRozan in the middle of the court as much as possible. And they were doing it pretty late in the clock. The first time they did it, it was great because he got great position. They ran the play and the Nuggets weren't really expecting it. So they were able to get DeMar the ball pretty deep. And from there, he was able to find Russell Westbrook for a corner 3. So that was great. But then when they kept going to it over and over and they kept getting it to him later and later in the clock, I was like, no, this is going to end badly, just continuing to go to these isolations. But to DeMar's credit, he continued to make things happen for either himself or his teammates. On the second one, he just puts it up there and then gets his own rebound and finishes. Then the next one, he finds Zach LaVine pretty open for a 3, and Zach LaVine absolutely clanks it because he can't score in the fourth quarter. But he was making things happen, as frustrating as it may have been to watch the Kings run down the clock so low before really getting into any offense. On the other end of the court, it was a miracle anytime they got a stop, but they did get a few. And it was a miracle when they got a stop, not even because it was a miracle when the Nuggets missed a shot, but it was a miracle when the Kings were actually able to come up with the rebound. And one of them was Russell Westbrook saving the ball and throwing it off Jokic out of bounds. But they were able to be just physical enough to stop the Nuggets from scoring on every single possession. And then you had that Russell Westbrook isolation, one-legged baseline fadeaway to go up 6 with 35 seconds left. And it looked like an awkward shot. I wasn't sure that was really the shot for Westbrook. I mean, usually you see him kind of taking that shot more towards the middle of the court, I feel like. And there was just something about it that made it look a little awkward, but he swished it to his credit. So with 35 seconds, the Kings were up 6. Jokic comes down and, of course, just knocks down a 3 really easily. But then DeMar against Spencer Jones, the guy replacing Aaron Gordon in the lineup. He draws the foul and won a crazy shot from DeMar. And it felt at that point that the Kings had the win wrapped up. Then Westbrook decided to make it a little bit interesting by fouling Jokic on a 3 after just 2 seconds of the possession. So 10 seconds left. And now the Kings are only up 3. But they were able to get it into DeMar. He knocked down the free throws and we got out of there with the 128-123 win. This team, they may not be good, but every once in a while, at least they can give us a game like this that can be fun to watch. And I did have a very good time watching Russell Westbrook drop 21 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, going off in that fourth quarter, leading the way for the Kings. Keegan Murray coming back, playing 37 minutes. That's probably what he's going to be doing all season. He's probably going to get up towards the 40-minute mark here, but he scored 19 points, 7 for 14 from the field. I'm loving his aggressiveness. There are so many players on this team that can get shots up. Malik Monk with the 14 shot attempts, Zach LaVine, 14 shot attempts. You have DeMar on this team and Westbrook, and, obviously Sabonis is out, but you also have Schroeder. So a lot of guys that can get shot attempts, and yet Keegan's out here being tied for the second most shot attempts on the team. And I've just been loving in the first 2 games how aggressive he is, looking for his own offense, looking to create off the dribble. He had a great attack from the wing, getting into the paint and finishing off glass. He was trying to attack mismatches whenever Jamal Murray was on him. And the first time he swished it, next time he airballed it. But I still want him to keep going at it. Went 3 for 8 from 3, so if he can also knock down a few threes, then that's great. And then just the defensive versatility that he provides is a breath of fresh air. DeMar had 17 points, 5 for 9 from the field, 7 for 7 from the free throw line, added 7 rebounds and 5 assists. His playmaking was very good, and he was crucial down the stretch despite taking under 10 shot attempts. Zach LaVine didn't have a great game. Thought he was solid in the first half. Did make one crucial shot in the fourth quarter, but definitely faded as the game went on. I'm sure at some point here he's going to go for a stretch of 5 games where he's scoring 30 plus again, but he also just goes through these stretches where he doesn't score that much or make that much of an impact, and it definitely felt like a game where he wasn't making too much of an impact. Off the bench, Dennis Schroeder, he only took 8 field goal attempts, but he scored 21 points. 6 for 8 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3, 6 for 6 from the free throw line, had 7 assists, had 0 turnovers. It was such a good Dennis Schroeder game off the bench. He was feeling it. He was chirping at guys. That's the Dennis Schroeder that I want. And that's the Dennis Schroeder that I was hoping we would get when we signed him. Malik, a little inefficient. 5 for 14 from the field, had 12 points in his 26 minutes. Max had 8 minutes, 6 points. Achua had 17 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds. Neek had 9 minutes, scored a couple of points, had the 3 fouls. All of them on rebounds, and he could have been called for another one, so he just needs to, chill out a little bit. I like that he's trying to get after it on the glass, but needs to chill out a little bit there. And then I think the only other guy I didn't mention was Drew Eubanks. 22 minutes, 8 points, and 3 rebounds. So a great win in an entertaining game. But I do have to mention a few things that are maybe more from a negative point of view despite the win. And I think it's just that, there are absolutely the positives that I talked about, like Keegan Murray playing 37 minutes and being great, and Maxime Renaud being good in his minutes. But then I also have to look at, okay, Renaud played 8 minutes, Neek Clifford played 9 minutes, Keon Ellis a DNP. Devin Carter, he's just banished to the shadow realm. So while I enjoyed this game and it was a fun win, I want to see more of the young guys. Keon Ellis being completely out of the rotation now that Keegan Murray is back, I think is completely unacceptable, but also something that I saw coming. And so even if the Kings pick up a few wins now, maybe they won't, maybe this was a one-off, maybe they will start playing a little bit better. I think they're going to start playing at least a little bit better, because it's hard to play worse than what they were playing to start this season. But if they do start to pick up those wins, I hope the lesson isn't, oh, we should go all in on this core now. Like, it should still be, you should go into a rebuild and trade some of the veterans. Just hopefully they're getting their trade value up a little bit here, and then we can see the young guys featured more and more as the season goes on. That's my hope. But the Kings' next game is against the Minnesota Timberwolves, so kind of finishing off this absolutely brutal part of this schedule with a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, finally coming back home after that tough road trip that they were just on. So they've already lost 2 games to Minnesota this season, but they didn't have Keegan Murray in those games. So I'm really just hoping that we continue to see that offensive aggressiveness from Keegan, that he continues to look for his shot, not just from the 3-point line, but also getting inside and into the mid-range. I liked his balance of shot attempts in both of these games. He was getting to the rim, he was getting to his mid-ranger, and he was getting 3-point shots. His decision-making was good, and so I want to see him continue to be a focal part of the offense. And I'm excited to see him going up against Anthony Edwards. I think that will be a very fun matchup. That is, if that is the matchup, because of course the Timberwolves also have Julius Randle, and the Kings don't really have anyone else to match up against Julius Randle unless you have a Precious Achiuwa out there who's not playing center. Like, that's the Kings' problem right now, is the guys who maybe would match up against a Julius Randle, like a Precious Achiuwa, are kind of forced to play center at times. And so maybe that pushes Keegan onto Randle, and that makes things tougher to guard Anthony Edwards. Just like if Aaron Gordon was healthy in this one, who would we have seen guarding Aaron Gordon? Maybe it would be Russell Westbrook, and so maybe we'll see Russell Westbrook guard Julius Randle a little bit, because I do think that we need to have Keegan on Anthony Edwards. But it does leave us pretty vulnerable when guarding Julius Randle, so maybe we can see Russell Westbrook get that matchup and see what he can do handling that physicality. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap that game against the Timberwolves, so I will see you guys then. Peace.